And we're live, and I will just share the agenda.
Perfect.
Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, great. Thanks, Cindy. So thanks everybody for joining us today for the Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order for Tuesday, July 25th, and I think it's about 1:05 p.m. Approximately. And so we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Has everyone had, well, I guess it's up on the screen so we can have a quick look at it. If there's no questions, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Through you, Chair. Yeah. Sorry, through you, Chair. We just need to make one amendment. We need to add item.
Oh, I'm sorry, you reminded me about that. Yes, 7.3 for the appointment of the chair.
No problem. So we need to do an appointment of the chair. So yes, that would just be the amendment to the agenda. And because we have a hybrid meeting, we'll need to do a recorded vote so I can call the votes whenever we get a mover and a seconder.
Okay. So we have a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda with the addition of item 7.3 to appoint a new chair.
We'll move.
Thanks, Brian.
I'll second.
And thanks, Kath, for the seconder. And then we need to do the recorded vote.
Correct. Onofrichuk?
Yes.
Billicock?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Huntley?
Yes.
That's carried.
Does anyone have any pecuniary interests to declare? No? Okay, great. No closed session. Let's move on to the minutes of our last meeting that was held in June 20th. I believe the minutes were sent out with the agenda. Does anyone have any modifications or questions regarding the minutes from our last meeting? No, we're all good. Okay, then could we get a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting? Move Lisa and Kath, thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
And then Cindy, do we need to do a recorded vote for that as well?
Okay. Yep, perfect. D'Amico?
Yep.
Huntley?
Yes.
Bilcock?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Onofrichuk?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then I've lost track of there we go. Thanks, Cindy. So do we have any reports today? I don't think we have anything to review from a reporting perspective. No.
Nope, not.
Okay, so we'll move on to general business, and this is when we'll turn it over to Bridget, and we'll get started on our strategic planning exercise.
Great. Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
You can, okay.
You're good, thank you.
A little scary. Okay, so just forgive me a little bit. This is kind of my first time doing it, so hopefully I don't bore you to tears, but I'm going to take you through just a little strategic planning exercise. Just as a reminder, Cindy, can you just flip to the next slide? So in our June meeting, we decided that we were going to update the existing energy conservation demand management plan. We were going to do a strategic planning exercise, which I'm going to get to. We were going to try and do it under the umbrella of the Climate Change Action Plan corporate goals. Because keep in mind, this is a corporate energy conservation demand management plan. I'm not sure if the acronym is easier to say or the full title, so I may switch back and forth. So we're going to take it through stage 1 and stage 2 of the strategic planning process. Hopefully we can get that. We do have a hard stop at 3 o'clock for Deputy Mayor Huntley. So hopefully we'll be able to get through that and get to the next session, which is prioritize and select specific community-focused action plans from the CCAP. So we're just going to kind of separate the two out. I think I did send a spreadsheet out that just kind of sorted them based on the greatest potential for greenhouse gas emissions reduction, but we'll get to that in a sec. Okay, Cindy, can you flip? Thanks. So I think I put the slide up for the last meeting. That we were going to split the strategic planning framework into 5 sessions. Today, we're going to do stage 1 and 2. So the date, I kept that from the original meeting, but obviously it's today, July 25th.
Yeah.
Then we're going to look at, I think later in the agenda, Cindy has some dates for the next few meetings. I think what she wanted to try and do is keep August 22nd, September 19th as the next dates, but we can obviously go through that with the committee. Okay. All right. So getting into our first stage, which is preparation. I think this will be pretty quick because I think we've already discussed this. So for Leslie and for Kath, it is on the screen. I do have some of it here. But some of the questions we're going to need to consider, and I'm going to just take some notes. You guys can just kind of brainstorm. We just need to consider why we're doing this. Are there any approvals? Are there any issues? Give me a second. I'm just going to grab my sheet. Just make sure I grab. Okay. Sorry. That's what I want. No. Okay. So roles, sharing information. Do we need any external support? Stakeholder engagement. Who else do we need to involve? How would we involve them? Do we need to do any open sessions? Our budget. What additional information do we need? And timing. When do we need to get this done? So I'm just going to ask, let's start with need. Why do we need to do this? Everybody jump in at once.
Yeah. So I think one thing I didn't notice in the actual EDM plan or ECM, the whatever, the plan was, potentially highlighting the fact that just the history in terms of why we need to do this, like the Green Energy Act was required municipalities to report their emissions. That act was, I guess, revoked. I'm not sure the exact terms, but now it falls under the Electricity Act, that requirement to report. So I think that's important to, include that background and really what's required under the Energy Act. And then my second point to that would really to be, to support the ambitious goals that are coming up, not only globally, but federally and provincially with regards to the reduction of emissions for 2030 and then for 2050.
Not sure it's called ambitious, right? That's okay. Great. Thank you, Leslie. Anybody else? I think the key one is just legislatively, we have to comply with the legislation. Approvals. Kyle, do you want to jump in on this one?
For approvals, like what we need for approvals for what we're going to do moving forward.
Is there any commitment approval from council in the planning process? So
Absolutely.
my understanding is that we can approve this at the committee level. We don't need to take it to council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nothing in the act really states that the new plan needs to be approved by council. The original one was. So is it required? Doesn't appear to be, just reading through the legislation, but it may be an internal decision to take it to council.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? You want to take it to council? You want to take it to the public?
I think that we need to be effective. I think it makes sense that, council would of course have to buy in, with just looking at some of the strategies that were highlighted in the plan. I think that it would be like proactive of us to get council's, if not buy-in, but at least acknowledgement of, the plan. My other thought is I'm sure there's going to be budget impacts coming out of this plan that will have to go to council. And then, I also think that we should, in the spirit of transparency, engage the community on this and potentially have an open session to say, these are our goals for the next 4 years, and, offer them the opportunity to contribute. I think that would kind of help set the stage just for sustainability, within the township in general.
Yeah, and I think later on, we do get into stakeholder engagement, so that
Yeah.
is really important. So I think ultimately, if I'm hearing it, you guys really want to make sure that we do take it to council and that we do get council support. Is that accurate?
I'm in agreement.
And I think it makes sense, just again, coming back to budget, if you don't have their support, and then we go looking for a budget, we never got their support in the beginning,
Yeah.
it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
So,
It's also, sorry, it's also awareness, right? Like if the council isn't aware that this is even taking place, then they're not going to be making decisions based on whatever this plan comes up with.
Right.
Kath, were you gonna say something?
Well, I agree that if we want council to not only be aware of this, but to support it and implement it, and align policies and plans accordingly, then definitely we need, we have council members here on the committee. So my one question is, how does the work of this committee get transferred to council? Like, how is that discussion taking place? So how is council apprised of what work we're doing as a committee?
Do you want me to answer that, or do you want to?
Sure, take
Okay.
it. I can-
Yeah, so I'll take a stab at answering that, but certainly Deputy Mayor Huntley can correct me. But usually as part of a regular meeting, Kath, council do verbal updates. And so usually council uses that opportunity to talk about some of the things that they've done. We as staff can also take a report to council, giving them updates on the committee if council directs staff to do that. There's lots of ways that we can update council and keep them apprised of what we're doing. Do you want to jump in there, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, and so some committees will actually do a delegation to council
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
present where they are, what they're doing and what's coming down, right? Like, and if this is going to go for approval, you probably want either to include a delegation when that report comes forward or precede the report with a delegation. So it's not just, what's going on, what is this, right?
Mhm.
Is approval just for awareness, like we accept the direction?
To be honest, I think approval might be the wrong term. Like, I think
Mhm.
it's acceptance or adoption or.
I think it's like consensus as well.
Receive it.
too.
Receive it, yeah.
Yeah, like it's not so much, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Is it still-
legislatively, council isn't required to approve it. So we can theoretically, we could just implement it at the committee level.
If
I
it's
think-
free,
What's that?
if nothing in here costs money.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if you want to take it to council, which we're all saying is a good idea to take it to council, particularly if there's budget implications. So as Deputy Mayor Huntley had said, in some cases, other committees have made a delegation at budget time. And then it's followed with a staff report at the same meeting requesting funds for particular initiatives. So, yeah.
Just to piggyback on that conversation, I think being that this is a new committee and we do have a budget ask and we will have some ask because we've never even had one. I think this would be a great opportunity to come as a delegation to the first intake. So we can reach out to members and we'll add that as an agenda item for our next meeting to come as a delegation to budget. I think that's a great idea. Be a great opportunity to showcase the new committee, ask council for our ask, and then it'll be before council.
Good.
Generally,
So
the chair
I think I think we've kind of, sorry. Cindy, did I cut you off?
I was just saying, generally, the chair and the vice chair will take that forward, and then if staff need to assist, we can assist, and it will kind of be an outline of what the committee's ask is and what our objectives are going to be. We've taken that forward with our Revitalization Heritage Advisory Committee with different asks, so that's how that would go. So when we get to that, definitely staff would be here to help.
So this is good. So our
Okay.
final question, just in the need, does anybody see any issues with that might affect our planning process?
Are all of these things confusing?
I
don't know if I-
100%, most of them were, I'd have to take a look at it. I can check, good question.
I mean, the only issues I can see are like my awareness of the state of things.
So I
Those
think
were all-
that's a really good comment, actually, Lisa, sorry.
No
I
problem.
mean, but we could always drop that in under data needed, is where we are, a status of what we said we were gonna do as part of the energy conservation and demand management plan.
Yeah.
How's that? You guys are okay? You can hear us?
Can hear you perfectly.
Okay, am I yelling too loud?
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
You're yelling.
I like to be yelled at, so that's okay.
Okay, all right. So are we good? Okay, so we can move to the next one, which is roles. What do we see as the role of each group member? I don't know as I see us having individual roles. I see us as individual, seeing coming together as a group.
Did you skip over issues?
Pardon?
Okay.
No.
She threw it there quick and then that was.
Oh, that was the
Yeah.
issues. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
I think I agree with you, Bridget, on that. But the point that got me thinking was what external support is required. And I see a couple of points that I'd like to toss out there. One being with regards to external support. So the committee for the Greater Peterborough Climate Change Action Plan. I think it would be really helpful to get, I guess, I don't want to necessarily use the word transparency, but maybe more back and forth communication between that committee and our committee, just to really, make sure that we're both parties are in alignment, make sure that we understand the goals that the CCAP committee are working towards. And I also just think that loops back to the other point we were talking about, is really, linking all of our objectives or action plans back to, that provincial and federal needs. So I think that if we can place an emphasis on interacting with that committee,
Yeah.
that would be helpful. But then as well, I think that there's potentially other organizations that we can talk to, such as Green Up. I see that they partner a lot with the city of Peterborough, as well the Ontonabe Regional Conservation Authority, Baxter Creek Watershed Authority. Just I think getting out there and talking to some of these stakeholders. I know we're going to talk about stakeholders, but just with regards to roles and that external support piece, I think that would be helpful.
That sounds good. In terms of the Greater Peterborough Area Climate Change Action Committee, would it make sense if we reached out and had them do a delegation to this committee? Does that make sense, or does everybody feel that's kind of?
That would be helpful.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if they could come and do even a short presentation, just in terms of what the committee's objectives are and what the status is of the plan and what they're focusing on, that would be really helpful. I think to get
From a corporate standpoint, if we kind of zero back to corporate, it might be something that, for us, it would be the county, what their initiatives are, because our initiatives are heavily tied to theirs, right? So it might have to keep that in mind, that it would probably be county representatives that we would come and speak to the committee.
Yeah, and I think that would be great.
Okay. What about sharing information?
So sharing with whom?
Good question. Who do we see sharing our, like, do we share information about these planning sessions? I mean, we always publish the minutes of the agendas. Minutes and agendas, so we publish the minutes of the meeting. They are on YouTube, so you
Yeah.
can listen in.
Is that in our, like, sharing with, like Enbridge or, electricity component, or are you thinking that ties into stakeholder engagement for sharing?
Could do what, either. It's, how will we share the information from the planning sessions?
Okay.
I think it's pretty straightforward, like for our planning sessions, we do publish our agendas, we do publish the minutes. You can, Yeah. Deputy Mayor Hundley can do an update to council. Does anybody think of anything else?
I think a lot of this, like roles and stakeholder engagement, are very closely linked. And so some of the things that we're going to move on to, I think, may help clear up some of these things that we're suggesting.
And I agree with you, on who it is that's involved to what it is you're sharing.
Okay, so let's move to stakeholder
Sorry, can I just
engagement.
add one item?
Absolutely.
Of equal importance to us sharing information is also receiving information. So if we're aligning our initiatives with larger initiatives with the county and with the city of Peterborough, and we want to maintain alignment, it's really important for us to receive information and to know what direction they're taking and initiatives that they're implementing, so that we maintain some consistency and some alignment in those respects.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay, so I just put that down there, Cap. Receiving information is important from your other CCAP parties. Okay. Everybody good if we move to stakeholder engagement?
Yes.
Okay, so we can just lump these questions. Who else should be involved? What way do we want to engage them? We're going to do open sessions to the broader community. And is there a need to hold a session with a target audience?
I think the open session to the target audience kind of depends on what our plans and goals are, of what we want to do, will dictate who we want to engage. I don't know how you deal with that, everyone. Which comes first?
It's more targeted.
For me, when I see stakeholder engagement, I kind of look at it, in a few different buckets. So first, it's, and it loops back to, someone had just asked a question about, your energy providers. So how can we start developing relationships with them? Like, how can we, forge a relationship with hydro, with natural gas, even fuel options for your fleet vehicles. And then, moving along, when we look at that broader, who should be involved, that's when I start to think about, reaching out to some of the organizations that I mentioned in the last question about, looking at the Conservation Authority, Green Up, Baxter Creek Watershed. That's who I look at and define as a broader community for helping us to really develop the corporate side of the plan. Because I think that these organizations, they may not have an accountability, but I think that they can certainly provide input to help us, get an understanding of everything that's happening within the township.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Kind of rambling.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Do we want to communicate with the community what we are striving to do as a corporate entity for ourselves?
Absolutely.
Okay. And do we any apart from publishing agendas and putting our meetings on YouTube, is there any other way that we?
I like the idea of,
Can I take this a slightly different way?
yes.
It's,
Stick to the path.
but I think it's still the stakeholder engagement component of it, right? Like, and to me, the stakeholders are the people who are going to execute it once this thing's complete.
Yeah.
So you need your directors of parks and your directors of facilities and your directors of
That's a good point.
of
Yeah.
parks and of public works and your building departments to have input into this thing. To when they're making operational decisions that this thing exists in their conscience.
Yeah.
Right, like it's good to have all these external entities, but they're really not executing to it. We are,
They're not, right, yeah.
right?
They're more input into it.
Yeah, because there could be budget components. to
100%.
Their budget.
Yeah, so it's not just our budget, it's like a departmental budget, right? Like if you want public works to get, a greener fleet, they got to understand they're executing to a plan that tells them that that's what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But if they've never read the plan or have no input to the plan.
Yeah.
Or come back to the plan and say it's an impossibility, don't even try. I mean, we need that. Like, there's no point building a plan that can't be executed.
Sounds good.
So they need to be engaged.
I think they have to be
in the
engaged.
Creation of the plan.
Absolutely, right? Because they're the ones we're going to hand the plan to and say, go do this.
Well, and here's where I think that, when we talk about facilitating change and change management, and we look at the composition of this committee, maybe we need to look at having representation from some of these stakeholder groups as part of this committee so that this isn't going to be something that we hand to them and say, this is happening to you. It should be something that is developed in collaboration so that they have a voice in the development of the plan and they have buy-in because they're part of the planning process.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, valid point.
So
I guess,
That- I don't think we have, I and Kath, I don't know what you mean by representation, like, I think fully they should be engaged in it. I don't think they come on board as part of the committee at all. But they can fully attend the meetings.
I think they should be engaged as a stakeholder,
Yeah.
opposed
exactly, yeah,
to a meeting or a committee member.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe if we're focusing on specific goals and objectives for specific entities, so say, for example, we get into fleet. That's obviously predominantly going to be parks or public works. Most of the big fleet is with public works, some parks and facilities. So that might be the opportunity for us to bring them into that session and be part of that
Yeah.
session. So, and that's maybe a good point. Maybe we need to, when we get into the goals and objectives under the streams, we identify who the stakeholders are for each stream.
I think that's what you did in the original plan. And to build on Ryan's point, I think that the way that we set our goals and objectives have to be both vague enough, but also clearly defined enough to be linked back to a significant measure so that we can tell that story if we go to Public Works to say, these are the measures that we're advising, and this is why. And then that's the point where we engage them as a stakeholder to say, how do we best achieve this?
And just to add that, they also have to have some that are attainable, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no point setting every goal so high that nobody's ever going to achieve it. Everybody will just give up on this thing, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what we did in the original. We tried to set, and we had a tight timeline, but we set low hanging fruit ones that we knew we could do, and maybe already planned to do, so we could actually be making some progress. And I think we tried to set some higher level ones that we could,
Work towards.
yeah.
Do we need anything else on stakeholder engagement, or do we feel like we've covered it?
I would just like to put out one more quick point, just to loop back to your question, Bridget, and how do we keep people informed? I think something we could consider once we have an approved plan and we have stakeholder buy-in is, looking at the option of, can we follow suit, say like how the BIA, they have their own social media page, like they post updates. It's a way to engage the community. Perhaps that's something that this committee can also look at doing once we have, that plan approved and, we have a way to measure our progress.
Okay.
As our own entity or through other entities? Or less?
I'm not sure what you You mean as our own entity? So I would say that like in my mind, it looks as if the sustainability committee has our own, say like social media page. It's just, the committee of council sustainability committee, but we're just really another place to push information through and get the community engaged in terms of what the township is doing to improve on sustainability.
Okay, no, that makes sense. That was my question.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, budget. What is the budget for the planning process? Facilitator, travel, refreshments, meeting room, supplies, printing. I'm gonna say 0.
Currently or for 2024?
Well, this is the next question. And then do we have the required budget or do we need to explore external funding? My thought is from a facilitation standpoint, I think we can do it ourselves unless you guys want to hire a professional. But to me, I think we would want to save budget requests for implementation. If everybody, I see people nodding their heads, but
What are we implementing, I guess?
well, once you get your plan.
The plan.
I know, but what's the cost of implementing a plan? But
Yeah,
for me, it seems like I mean, the main portion of budget consideration would be with the other departments trying to fit within the plan.
Mhm.
Like, once we've created a plan, I mean, really, what are you gonna do? Print it? Right, unless there's other incentives inside that plan, where we can kickstart things. And I think that's an entirely different, I don't think we're at a point where we can figure out what those are. Maybe
I
I'm
think,
wrong.
the only thing that kind of makes me think budget in my mind right now, and I certainly agree. I think that I don't think we need, any facilitation, any consultants. I think we have our process in place to work through this. But when I think about budget, I think about the data management strategy, the reporting, the measuring. That's the only piece that is unclear to me in terms of we're putting this plan together and it needs to be measurable. So how can we achieve that with this committee? Are we able to, or do we need help to create like a data management strategy? And I'm not saying that has to be for the entire township, but at least enough to support the development and the implementation of the corporate energy management plan. So that's that's the question that I just want to put forward is how do we get all the pieces that we need to be effective, like before we even start talking about costs to implement the recommended measures. I'm not expecting you guys to have the answer to that right now. I'm just trying to, throw it out there to consider that is.
It's kind of a big question, and again, it's one of those things that's kind of circular. It's like, depends what you do to how you measure it, depends what you can measure to what you do, maybe. Because if we look at the existing plan and what we did, like installing 8 solar tracking units, well, those are obviously, they went in, we can measure what's coming in, what energy costs that saved us. But when we get to something, to your point of how do you measure it with small business lighting, so we spent $3,000 a year on changing our business lighting, how do you know how effective that was? Is that by the reporting after on the annual basis? Do you go back and you show that has some measurable savings? So well, it depends on what we do to how we measure it. So
some things will just be binary, right?
Mhm.
Like, did you implement it or not?
Yeah.
Right. And
Mhm.
because it's not everything in sustainability is about the dollars you get back. It's about the long term. Did you do something better, right, than you could have done it otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main goal is I think Kevin, it's supposed to, I wrote it down, but I can't remember, like 190 tons of carbon we want to cut out by 2030. So we have no way to measure that. And that's you know, what I think that we need to figure out how we're going to do that.
Yeah.
You know, so do we have, and I'm kind of jumping, I'm sorry, I'm lumping budget and information. I'm kind of jumping ahead and I apologize, but that's the only budget piece that kind of set off a bell in my head in terms of for the development of the plan. How do we get, and maybe you guys have it already.
So So we do the corporate data. I think I had mentioned to the committee the last meeting, the corporate data we have had, we've been tracking the data or monitoring it, and it gets uploaded to the provincial government. Jump in if I don't have this right. And you calculate what your usage is, both in, it's just mostly electricity and natural gas. You load that in and then it kicks back a greenhouse gas emission total. So you would just take that and compare it, obviously, to where you want to be at this particular stage, right?
So we have that information.
It's in between two systems right now because the province switched over to, it's called My Portfolio. So they took in 2016 and 2020 data. So it's missing 2017, 2018, 2019, 21 and 22. And we are in the process of entering that data. So you just got to give us a bit of time. Sorry, Craig, go
How is
ahead.
that related to the last energy planning tool?
What do you,
Sorry, I'm just following along with the data management plan for the existing ECDMP.
okay,
Oh,
Yeah.
so how does that compare to?
How does it
what we
relate
used
to the information?
Yeah, so
that's
same
in the
thing,
last-
it's just the software has changed, so, since this came out, since the reporting requirements have happened, it's almost every year they give us a new tool to use.
I see.
And we got, so it started with, we use this software to report, and then they changed the software, and then it came in as an Excel spreadsheet. And when this all came out, a bunch of companies were coming out to say, here, use our program to measure your stuff, so we probably changed reporting mechanisms
I see.
5 times maybe. So
Okay.
that first part that you're talking about, that's what we started with for our reporting. And it was supposed to give us back some good feedback on comparing it year over year and where we could, but it didn't really ever do that. So the program, I think the newest one is giving us a lot better
I see.
info and comparables.
Okay.
But yeah, it's kind of missing some key data points to be able to give us some real good numbers, but
Okay.
I think it will get there better.
Okay. So hence the need to update the plan, particularly to the point that Leslie's bringing up.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, just following along.
no,
Sorry,
it's good.
So do we have the tool to do the measuring and the reporting? Or we don't? Now I'm confused.
So we do, so
Okay.
their new software for us to, so give you just quick rough version of it is, say, 3 years ago, it was just an Excel spreadsheet that I got every year. We went in, we got all our hydro billing, all our gas billing for each facility, had to figure out which one was which, because sometimes it didn't have a name, just had account numbers, and we'd have to add up every month, put that in for that facility, and it would, once we submitted it, it would spit out what our greenhouse gas was for that one. Well, we did that for all, say, 20 facilities we had, and then we'd submit that. They'd send us back a thing that said what our total greenhouse gas emission was. So, and it was always 2 years behind.
So we aren't actually calculating it ourselves. We're just providing the data for the calculation to take place.
We're putting in where we gotta get the consumption out of our billing right now, so we're entering all the consumption in. For gas and for hydro, and then they send us back what our actual greenhouse gas emissions are. That's all it was an Excel spreadsheet,
Mhm.
really low level, and just gave us that number. The new one will compare year over year, facility to facility, and it's a bunch of different stuff. We're still kind of.
There's a little more historical data. you need to-
Yeah, and it's just the. More like not the dashboard, but it's just more,
There's more reports and.
yeah, it's more than just a spreadsheet.
Well, maybe some of that
Let's give us
stuff would
a-
be good to come back to us. Sorry.
Yeah.
Leslie.
No,
So we can see what's going on. like,
For
see-
sure,
see
we
what these
just need to
reports look
get-
like.
Get it, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's kind of riding between two systems right now, and it is an onerous task to put the data in, because you actually have to go through each and every hydro bill to get the usage, and then to get Because this one allows you to put in dollar costs. So you can enter in dollar costs, but at the end of the day, you're still putting in your usage from every single bill, and you got to separate by facility. So it is,
And even
So I have two
some-
questions. First one related to it would be who's responsible for entering that data?
So, right, so it was supposed to be a facilities person, but then they kind of changed hands quite often. So it's been me, and right now it's my administrators pretty much doing it most years.
I see.
Yeah, so, and the tricky thing is, it's not as straightforward as just your house bill, here's your consumption, pull that number.
No doubt.
A lot of our buildings have like a street light associated with it that's maybe tied in, or they have 3 bills, or you have to, if you get a refund bill that, because depending on the type of facility, you'll get like, it'll be 6 pages that'll have a bunch of different consumption numbers. You gotta figure out which is the actual, it's
Kyle, do you report monthly or do you report on an annual basis?
annual, yeah.
Annually.
So every year, July 1st is the deadline. We've hit that a few times, but this year they've extended it to October 1st, I think.
Okay.
I'd have to check to see where at, but yeah, it's really, and then, and you got, tracking down the billing alone is pretty tough. Yeah.
Challenge.
And is the
Yeah.
scope of that just electricity and natural gas, or does it include
So it's,
propane and vehicle gas, diesel?
so as of right now, it's just the facility itself, but on our water wastewater facilities, we also have to, report, water and,
Okay.
and sewage.
Okay, so is propane vehicle use, is that out of scope?
That's out of scope, I believe, right now. I don't think it's came in.
Okay.
My administrator did this year, so, sorry, I just missed.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah.
Sorry, to simplify it for my own mind. Today, you can't give a greenhouse gas reduction. Like if you totaled every year, even if you just had the 2020, you can't say we had 60,000 and now we have 40.
We probably could do that if, once we get the 2, so we could have a good comparable. This new software would do that better. The other tricky thing that we get factor in there is what facilities came on, what facilities expanded, so.
Right.
Right,
So-
sorry. Just, can I go back to that question? 'Cause it's just-
Absolutely.
I'm not, is the scope purposefully not including all propane, all vehicle?
So if it's facility related, it would include propane, but we don't have any propane for any of the facilities we're reporting on. The
Okay,
vehicle component, I don't think that came on last 2 years.
Yeah.
because I'm just thinking if we're looking to be accountable to performance minimize energy component for cost of municipal services, which is I'm quoting from the ECDMP, then would we not want to
We could track it.
include scope of?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we should be looking to expand it to everything we can. capture.
Yeah, absolutely. I think though the system, I don't think, we would have to do it separately.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just a
which is
question.
fine. Yeah, yeah. It's
Just
just we
thinking.
would have to have 2 different
Right,
systems to manage it. So, and I think, our next meeting is about data
see.
and analyzing the data. So we're hoping that we have, at least from a corporate standpoint, have a clear picture of where we are.
Okay.
It's just, we're kind of in transition right now, trying to get,
I don't think the fleet would be too hard because we
no,
pretty much all use centralized system. Fire department, they use other sources too, but.
But if you're tracking, you know, if you're just tracking kilometers, it's not that hard. Then you take an odometer reading off of each vehicle and.
yeah. But it says here, like you're procuring from single source, right? Suncor and Upper Canada and Casey's.
Typically,
So
yeah.
they could probably report.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's what I
it,
mean, that should be pretty
Yeah.
straightforward,
I
yeah.
think for
The
the-
only anomalies are when we get fire and they have to use someone else
Yeah.
because they're at someplace, but those would be pretty minor
Right.
anyhow, so.
I
Yeah,
think
so
when
actually-
we did the climate change action plan, we actually had to go through every bill and pull it out, right?
Right.
So there is still that component, but
I mean, you guys could also,
until we have something better, yeah.
yeah, you could just simply pull your bills 12 months apart and compare your actual readings, and that's going to be your annual usage. But you're not going to get your annual dollars that way necessarily. So it depends on what you need to include. But Bridget, did you say that there's a line item at our next session to specifically discuss data in more detail?
Yeah, so our next session, session 3, is collect and analyze information. So
Okay,
we
then-
take a look at We would
Maybe
kind
we
of
could-
gather information that we see as part of this, like what information do we need? So
Yeah.
that we do a good analysis.
Yeah, perhaps we could touch base offline and, kind of talk a little bit about what that could look like and what we could bring back for the rest of the
Well,
committee.
we can kind of just shift to, some of this is like the information, what sort of data we needed. So I think we've kind of covered that we just need a more accurate picture of.
Well, I think it's more than that, my opinion. I think we need a process. We need a formal reporting mechanism. We need audit. We need transparency. I think I don't think at all that, I think all the pieces are there, but I think we need to figure out how we're going to pull them together and make it work.
And to just add that a little bit, Leslie, I think it's important that we then be able to present it in a way that people can digest it.
But
Yeah, I agree.
Like
Yeah.
having reams and reams and reams of reports is not that meaningful to most
No.
people.
No. And I mean, primarily, I think for most people, they want to be able to see progress.
Yeah.
And that can be done in a straightforward way, as long as we have the measures in place to ensure that what we're doing is accurate.
Yeah, I think this new reporting, as much as we can see, it's better for individual facilities too, because our parks yard just increased in size. We have another brand new public works facility with a CMCC that isn't brand new, but it came on and the use keeps increasing. And then we're going to have a fire hall at some point. So there's large facilities coming on that we can break them out to show, yes, our greenhouse gases have gone way up, but our square footage is gotta be comparable and
Yeah.
increasing. So this seems to have a better breakout mechanism.
That's great.
Okay, is there anything that we want to add to information, data needed? Status, maybe?
Well, I think we kind of alluded to it is, what data do we want to collect? Like we seem to have facilities, we've talked about vehicles, like is there, what other categories of things are out there or
Yeah.
available? That, waste, very good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think we've tipped it, and there's probably more, right? Like we just need to see what else is out there.
I do think that we should look at water as well. Like water is a big, component of like global and federal and provincial plans in terms of water conservation. So I don't think that it would make sense to leave water off the table. In addition to Lisa brought forward waste.
That's something that's pretty easy to track.
Okay, we do need to kind of keep moving forward because we are approaching a hard deadline. We're still okay, but we're at 2:00, almost at 2. Timing, I think that one's pretty straightforward. As soon as possible. I think the legislation had said we needed to have it in as July 1st. Kyle did allude to the fact that we do have an extension. But I think it's October, did you say?
October 1st, yeah, for most of it, but there's no police out to get you. I think the intent is that you're developing it and we're take longer because we're going to have a more thorough and usable plan. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Instead of just rushing something in.
Yeah, I think there's two phases to the timing though. I mean, one is what we're legislated and required to submit, and there's the other that we need to publicly present. Right. One feeds the other, obviously, but I think that as we've been discussing, I think there's things we want to publicly present that aren't necessarily part of the regulatory submissions, right? And then once we've established that, I think we need to kind of, establish it, on a regular basis. Is this something that we do quarterly, monthly, not that scary, annually, but what's our reporting cycle on it? Like, how do we track our progressions and all of these results? And get that system running.
Okay, so if we were to put a hard date together for this report, would it make sense? I know we start the budget process kind of in September, and that we start assembling all of our asks. Would it make sense that October, November?
Mhm.
Does that seem doable? And we can try and tie it to a council meeting, right? So that we
Well,
have it.
I
in
think for
time.
this go round, I think it's easier to tie it to the submission, because that'll give us a lot of the data. But then, we can decide whether, that's the time frame we always want to work with, or we want to shift it, but I think, I think we kind of have a hard and fast deadline on that one.
October, you mean?
Yeah, so why not use it?
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah.
And we'll figure out what we want to do going forward.
Okay. Okay, all right.
Like I said, so they'll contact, so what they usually do is call us if our annual reporting is late, they'll call and say, why haven't you submitted? And we say, we tell them that we're working on it and where we're at. They're usually like, okay, just get it as soon as possible. If it's something more broad like this, I'm sure they would call, and if we said, yeah, we're trying to engage the public and all that type of thing, I'm sure they're not gonna have an issue extending it, but we'll shoot for October again.
Does anybody have anything else that they want to add as part of this phase 1 preparation?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, just didn't want to flip the page if people weren't ready.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I have a question.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
The efficiency team, do you still have an efficiency team? And are these all the stakeholders that we're talking about involving?
So those were all senior staff.
Oh,
So the intent was that we have weekly meetings, so we could discuss any items at those weekly meetings. We still have most of that staff. So that's still pretty much our senior staff.
But that's who we're talking about, the stakeholders that,
Yeah.
that kind of heads of department that would implement this plan. and
Exactly, yeah.
Be there.
Yeah, Director
Yeah.
of Public Works, Director of Parks.
Okay. All right, so moving on to the next phase, which is to develop our vision and our mission statement. Okay, so just an overview. I'm sure most of you guys have been through this 1,000 times, so you know the difference, but just to kind of review, a vision statement is going to outline where we want to be and our purpose and values as a group. The mission is going to talk about purpose and function. So our vision statement is going to say, where do we aim to be? Whereas our mission statement is going to be, what do we do? What makes us different? A mission statement tends to be in the present, whereas a vision statement talks about the future. And from a functional standpoint, a vision statement creates a picture of the future and helps us to inspire us. And it serves as a mission statement, it serves as an ongoing guide that communicates what the group is all about. So that just kind of gives you a little overview of the difference. I got a few samples. Cindy, do you want to just slide down? Here were a couple of samples. 4-H, United Way, and our own climate change action plan. So these are all, so for our climate change action plan, we will reduce our contributions to climate change while increasing our ability to adapt to climate change conditions. So if we were to kind of pull out keywords, it would be to contributions and adaptation. What are we going to reduce? How much? And how are we going to adapt to what has already happened? Okay. So as part of the vision statement, I think it gave you a little bit of homework. So Cindy, if you want to flip over to the next slide. And recognizing that people probably didn't get a chance to do it, but if you did, you get a gold star. So there's a couple of different exercises you can do. I chose a headline. So if you were to imagine you were sitting at home reading an article about this committee 5 years from today. It talks about the remarkable success of what we've done. Imagine the headline and the story that accompanies it. So I don't know if anybody's had an opportunity to kind of just write down you know, what that headline would be and a brief story. You probably haven't had a chance to write an entire article, but even if you just had some key bullet points. And you can just shout them out and I can just put them on the board here.
Does anyone want to go first? I kind of took over and like usual and talked too much. So I just want to give
Right.
anyone else the opportunity to.
I wrote
No.
a few.
Yeah,
Thanks.
go ahead, Lisa.
Changing the dynamic of systems and spaces from fossil fuels to renewable energy, from single-use to multi-use, from linear to circular and disposable to reusable, extractive to restorative, from wasteful to conscientious, from carbon compounding to carbon neutral.
Beautiful. Okay, so did everybody hear that?
I heard, I missed the very end.
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
Do you want to read it again?
Sure.
Yeah.
So in 5 years, this is obviously my article. We changed the dynamic of our systems and spaces from fossil fuels to renewable energy, from single-use to multi-use, from linear to circular, from disposable to reusable, extractive to restorative, wasteful to conscientious, from carbon compounding to carbon neutral.
Very good.
That's great.
Yeah.
I only use
That's awesome.
ChatGPT for part
Okay.
It starts to sound like a thesis there.
of it. I asked it to write a Rick Mercer rant, and it did an amazing job.
Okay, so if you were to pull out keywords, Lisa, what would you pull out?
Those are all my keywords.
You had some
Wasteful to conscientious,
wasteful to conscientious.
linear to circular.
I think that the theme of all of it though is a shift.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna get to the themes in a
Yeah.
sec. So wasteful to
Sorry, I just jump
conscientious.
ahead all the time.
Yeah.
I hate the
Forward
process. I like the end.
thinking.
Forward thinking,
The
that's a good
visionary
one.
idea.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? You had a lot there, like I'm sure there's more keywords.
Yeah, I'll read my whole article. We simplified our terms of engagement with the natural world and promised to be better humans. These intentions saw us prioritize funding for projects, both big and small, from the viewpoint that Cavan Monaghan is not insignificant in its place or population, but the most important community to us, its residents. The momentum only grew as the years tumbled through extreme heat, tornadoes, and flooding. These hardships strengthened the resolve of many more than just the drivers and decision makers, but each individual and family who began to see hope through despair. Ooh, that's a little dark. The climate is no different here than 2 regions over, but our readiness to act, react, and interact sets Cavan Monaghan apart. Increasing biodiversity meant stronger local agriculture. Stronger local agriculture meant better health. Better health meant increasing participation and innovation. Increased innovation led to rising economic circumstances. Yeah. This is my article. Our eyes are opened to the interconnectedness of all these things, and we're not looking back.
Okay.
Point to
Great.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
Not looking forward to the tornadoes and hurricanes component of it. but-
It's coming. Oh, sorry.
In general, like forward thinking, obviously, wasteful
Hope
to
to despair,
conscientious.
you wrote.
Hope to despair, yeah. Or despair to hope,
Despair, though.
yeah. And prioritize funds.
Thanks for pulling that one. Prioritize.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Anybody else hear any keywords that you want me to put on here?
I don't know if you picked out the word circular, but
Circular?
yeah,
Yeah,
I think that, that kind of helps people envision really what, one of the goals is just how everything really has to come back to the earth, and, how we can be more mindful of that.
okay. Anything else?
It was a lot
I
of
think
good stuff.
there was a, oh, sorry, listen,
No,
there's
go
kind
ahead.
of a theme of preparedness in there as well, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like we weren't taken by surprise and we were going to adapt and adjust.
Yeah.
Terms of engagement.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about the different departments implementing this strategy, they have to have a good chunk of their mindset in, I guess, the momentum of this committee and movement.
Yeah, I guess the only part of it though is it always seemed like the tornadoes and the hurricanes were almost the impetus, you know, and it's almost like we should have been ahead of that. And I don't know how we shift that a little bit.
How would you possibly?
Well, we haven't had a hurricane yet, but I mean,
Last
but this is the point being, like, if we want to change our fleet, just as an example, right? Like, we don't need to wait until we have natural disasters that, you know, that are compelling
No.
reasons to change.
Right.
Like, you need to have that, you know, you have to change before the compelling reason happens.
Yeah, we have to be proactive instead of always reacting.
Exactly.
Is there room for an understanding that we could change absolutely everything and those will still happen?
Well, I mean, can't stop it from happening if it's gonna happen. I mean,
I think
but
in that
I
situation,
think my point being is, as human beings, we're reluctant to change unless something forces us to. Right. And then that goes for, you know, whether for pretty much everything. Right. So being proactive, you don't necessarily get an initial reward or reap the benefits of it because you don't see it because you may have diverted it.
Right.
Right. Which makes it very hard for us to justify in our brains. Right.
Right. So what do you suggest, like being proactive?
It's being proactive, but it's getting the buy-in from everybody to understand why you're proactive, right? And you know, obviously, that's the awareness of climate change has grown significantly, but you still, you know, you put in a bigger culvert now, you know, because you're going to have more, you know, intense rainfalls later.
Mhm.
You know,
I think
or do you buy the cheap one now because it fits your budget.
I think right now we're just trying to come up with the keywords that we're hearing from each other, which I think we've got preparedness, adaptation, forward thinking, circular, proactive, wasteful to consciousness, despair to hope. Okay, do we want to move to someone else? Thank you.
Yeah.
That was excellent.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
excellent.
it was great, Lisa. Thank you.
Homework.
Good job. Okay, who's next?
Mine's not as fancy as Lisa's, but it's
Okay,
now I'm feeling inadequate.
it's not about form, it's about
I'm
content.
I'm completely kidding. So my headline was very a little bit more, I'd say, tactical, and that you know, Kevin Monaghan has annually reduced our CO emissions by 25 tons a year, and we're on track to hit our 190 tons of carbon reduction by 2031, sorry. And then my key points were enhance the waste program, support environmental agencies, gain consensus across stakeholders, ensure that each goal or measure is directly relatable to a global, federal, or provincial, I would say, target or initiative or area of focus. Seek partnerships with agencies, for example, natural gas, hydro, other agencies that potentially offer building retrofits, et cetera. Implementing an accurate and reliable data management strategy that will support the required reporting, tracking, and measurement. And then I think my last piece was include sustainability into the corporate culture through green procurement, bylaws, and then as well to set targets for future sustainable development, whether it be new corporate buildings or look at building code.
Okay, so I've got corporate culture, reduction, consensus, enhancing programs, connecting to other agencies, data management. Is there anything you feel that I've missed?
One thing that I wrote down was, by pursuing grants proactively, we're able to minimize the budget impacts. So
Is that a mission statement?
Is
Or
that
is
a
that a vision?
is
Is that
that
a mission statement or a vision?
the whole thing I just read?
Just about the budget, sorry, just about the budget, yeah.
I mean, I would say, I don't know.
So keep in mind, our vision is where we want to be.
Right, and I think-
and we want to inspire.
Yeah, and so we have to be able to do these things in a cost-effective way.
Right, okay, so cost effective. Awesome. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else want to jump in, add something?
Yeah, I want to add one to there. You kind of triggered something there. I think there's a proponent of this that is almost a leadership, like make us an envy of other organizations and have them want to follow what we've been doing.
Yeah, okay.
So mine are mostly just bullet points, but towards the vision, it would be that the township walks these are bullet points. So we walk the talk, we model the changes necessary for a positive environmental impact. I incorporated the idea that the township is growing in population. So I used the idea of growing in the right direction. Right being, of course, sustainable. Sustainability at our core, sustainability as our local culture. And then in terms of the mission, it's basically that we exist as a committee. I'm thinking of our mission as a committee. We exist to facilitate policy and practice to achieve township sustainability.
Awesome. Okay, I'll get you to put a pin on the mission because we are going to do that exercise next.
Okay.
So this was good. I heard model changes, growing in the right direction, culture. We've got leadership. Anything else you want to add that I didn't capture, Kat?
Sustainability at our core.
Sustainability at our core. That was one I missed. Yes. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I guess I think there is no, I didn't write it down, but just the idea of making measurable impact. So being able to measure our progress in terms of achieving these milestones in our energy conservation and our managing the demand on energy and on resources.
Okay.
Can I modify that one maybe a little bit? And it's not just measurable, but tangible.
I think that could be on its own, to be honest with you. So we'll just put it underneath though. Tangible efforts or impact.
Rewards.
Tangible rewards.
No, I guess rewards isn't the right word.
Tangible action. How's that?
Effects, tangible effects.
Okay. Anything else?
Affects.
Adapt. Like I'm looking at ability to adapt on the CCAP.
Yeah.
Ability to adapt, and I kind of fixated that. Oh, I fixated on it a little as I was thinking, and I wasn't sure. Ability to adapt. Do you think what gives you an ability to adapt? It's like having preparedness.
That's one of those stickers,
funding.
right? Preparedness
Yeah,
adaptation.
Yeah, we can
Oh, okay.
separate them.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. no.
Agility, we
Mindset,
adapt
I
because
think
we're
that-
agile.
Yeah. Agility, that's a good one.
Mhm.
Okay. Does anybody else have another article or that they want to bring forward? Okay. Any other keywords? Okay. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and narrow that down to 3 words, concepts, or ideas that are the most important.
Sorry, I had one more word.
So we can
Oh,
probably.
what's when your one more word? Go for it.
One more word. Go for it.
Stewardship.
Stewardship, that's a good one. So let's maybe take a look at some themes. Okay, I did hear leadership and stewardship. Model changes. Do you agree?
So when you say model changes, what is that?
That was me. I'm referring to walking the talk so that
Okay.
there's consistency in what we expect to
Oh, okay, I
implement
see what
and
you're
how we
saying.
actually conduct ourselves as a committee, as a municipality, as a council, as a township office.
Yeah.
So leadership, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Would forward thinking also be part of that?
Yeah. Forward thinking. Okay. Culture.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what's this, first, Bob? Are we
So-
making 3?
3 keywords. So if we were to sum up stewardship, leadership, model changes, so walking the walk, forward thinking, and culture. If you had one word for all of that, what would you refer to it as?
You also have corporate culture up there.
Corporate
I would
culture.
refer to it as just as culture.
Yeah, okay. Culture? Leadership?
I think stewardship is kind of,
Stewardship sums it up.
Yeah, it's stewardship or leadership.
yeah.
We've got stewardship or leadership on the
block.
block.
Steward.
What do you think?
Who's got the thesaurus?
I was gonna say, what's the difference?
Yeah. I really like the word stewardship. I also
I think it's
feel
overused.
that, yeah, I think leadership is a word that it can be very transitional to many things. So, we're going to be a leadership, like we're going to be a leader in climate change. We are going to, be a leader.
It's a little stronger of a word.
Yeah.
So leadership?
We're leaning on leadership.
However,
Well-
it's kind of ubiquitous, right?
Yeah.
Leadership applies to everything. And I think that as a vision, it's a specific path of leadership towards a specific end.
Does leadership inspire you?
Does leadership inspire? Sorry, I didn't catch that, Bridget.
Does leadership inspire?
I think leadership should inspire.
And also just,
Stewardship sounds almost a little bit more passive.
Okay.
Is it just kind of how it
Taking
What-
care of, opposed to lead.
exactly.
Okay. So leadership is it?
Well, Kath, you wanted to,
Captaincy.
yeah, no, I just,
Yes,
is it realistic for, and the vision, it can be pie in the sky, it can be big
Yeah.
dreams,
Yeah.
but putting it into sort of context, is Cavan Monaghan as a township seeing aspiring to be leaders in this. So that means surpassing, that means setting an example that is beyond what maybe townships or entities that are better resourced might be achieving. I just want to keep it in perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, looking at that from that point, I understand the theme that you're kind of pointing to, like, say, for example, the city of Toronto, their net zero goal is 2040. The federal goal is 2050. So I see in the context that Kath is saying that how they could define themselves as a leader because they are exceeding. Stewardship, I just looked it up, and something that stuck with me is a responsibility to take care of something. So maybe, I think ultimately the vision statement is what we're trying to do is capture the fact that the township wants to be proactive and really set an example for sustainability. And I do think that leadership can address that. Also, I think stewardship can address that because we are, taking care of the planet, and that's, really the whole premise of this.
And
But other
leadership
than that-
can mean, it can also mean, okay, we've set a target and we've surpassed it by 3 or 4 times, right? So this was our target because that target was manageable for us. So we're showing leadership in that we're not just trying to meet our target, we're trying to blow it out of the water, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that what we do has to be better than somebody else. It just means that we're doing what we can to go above and beyond, if that helps.
Yeah, I think too, the leadership can be that we're doing it in a way that's getting results, or as we said, well, we'll get to net zero here by 2035. That doesn't make us a better leader. You just said it more goal that we might not achieve. So we're doing it the right way, and we're going to get to the end goal of some kind of better strategy.
Yeah.
I still think leader sounds more like we're in control, right? And we're taking charge and doing things, where stewardship kind of sounds like we've been handed something and we're maintaining it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I like them both, but I get, one's care, one's drive. And then
Yeah.
Or we be leaders in stewardship.
How about like
leadership. We combine the leadership.
leadership, because it seems to be, we seem to be,
Leadership.
Steamship.
okay, so because we've included things like stewardship, walking the walk, talking the talk, forward thinking, corporate culture, growing in the right direction. I think those are all things that are part of being a leader. What would be our next one? We've got ability to adapt, which I think agility.
Yeah, I was
It's a
just
good
going to
one.
say adaptability.
Yeah.
Preparedness.
Preparedness, adaptation. Okay.
I really like agility. I think that to get to where we need to be, you need to be able to, with all the change, climate change. I think that's one of your big keywords to me.
So I think guys
beginning
we're
of
at agility. It seems to be a word that kind of around the table we're kind of liking. Urgency.
Well, the urgency quite fits there, but obviously is an urgency.
Yeah, if you look at agility, it means your ability to act quickly, right? Or change direction if you need to.
The proactive ability to adapt and preparedness.
Okay.
What's the sustainability at? It's
At
up-
our core, which I
Got
think
it.
is probably more leadership.
Yeah,
Measurable impact, tangible actions, connected to other agencies, circular, enhanced programs, cost-effective, data management, consensus and reduction.
What's the circular? Is that
That's
like
Lisa's circular.
Oh, yeah.
Cradle grave or cradle
Just,
cradle.
creative? Yeah, okay.
Yes. So in then.
Yeah, it's like a systems approach.
Approach.
kind of what leadership.
I was actually thinking it was more of a measurable
Maybe.
data management. Maybe you could
Mhm.
ride between the two, maybe.
So, sorry, Bridget, where you're separating those little stickies into themes. And the
Yeah.
first theme we said is leadership. The second theme is what we're working on right now.
Exactly.
Okay, and then, so we're talking about,
So we've
what's,
got, I'll read them out to you. There's the ability to adapt,
okay,
agility, preparedness, adaptation, and proactive. So I think the summary keyword we were looking at is agility.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. That's okay.
That's just my, I mean, because I think agility kind of contradicts the proactiveness, right? Because agile is how quickly can we react? Like how quickly can we like jump into action? That's what I think when I hear agile. But whereas, adaptability is how can we have our plan, how can we make, little adjustments as we're going along to stay on track.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I pictured it more as like you're being proactive, you have a plan before you get to something, but you're ready to move depending
Yeah.
on what is
Yeah.
brought to it, so.
I
So
think
in
it's
a-
acknowledging that a plan has to be fluid in a sense. I mean, there's a certain element of it that's gonna be cut and dry, but there's a certain other element that's gonna bob and weave as time goes on.
So I
Yeah.
think a good example maybe is changing legislation, right? And changing priorities. So you're depending on the government that's in at the time, the priority may be completely different.
Right.
So being able to adapt from you may not see as much funding, right? So you may have to adapt your actions to address. It's
Yeah.
maybe not a priority at the provincial level, but it's still a priority to us, but we have to adapt our actions. We
Yeah.
have to be agile, right?
Yeah.
To change.
The more proactive you are, the more you run.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way. The way it is, isn't it? Yeah.
So are we landed on a word?
My personal vote is to be able to adapt, but I'm open to suggestions.
Adaptability?
Yeah.
Is adaptability okay?
I like it, but I'm curious to see how everyone else feels about it.
Yeah, I'm not married to anything. I'm happy. Adaptable is a totally appropriate choice.
I'm not a fan of adapt in the sense that I kind of feel like you're almost submissive. You're adapting to what you're told versus agile, which is you're out in front of it and you're getting around. And
I agree with that, and I may not be right, but adapt seems like after the fact. Something's happened and now you're going, okay, yeah. Whereas agile, you're kind of.
I only got 60 in English though, so.
Well, agile could be, you're able to jump out of the way of something, right? Quickly before it bowls you over.
Feel like you're dealing with that coming as opposed to adapting, it seems after.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, ladies? Adaptability is kind of seen more as a reaction, whereas agility is more of a proaction.
Well,
So-
I see agile as being a reaction myself,
Okay.
just based
Yeah.
on the dictionary definition.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think maybe we just have these 2 words and we move on in the interest of time, and then we can,
Mhm.
maybe something will fall out of the sky and we'll feel inspired.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. Agility. Sorry for my spelling. Okay. So the last one, we've got reduction, consensus, data management, enhanced programs, connected to get to other agencies, cost effective, measurable impact, tangible actions. I mean, hearing a lot of data management.
I think that I agree. You know, looking
It's
at a
all-
lot of other plans, I see a lot of one of the most succinct things that I see in a vision statement is measurable.
Measurable impact. I think that's kind of probably the key word,
It's
measurable impact.
along the same line, like results, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tangible actions. Consensus.
You know, I think consensus kind of
leadership.
go under leadership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, reduction,
It's tangible, potentially, like a,
or maybe that might be, reduction might be a mission statement, part of your mission statement, do you think?
Yeah.
You can
well, there,
park it.
it's theoretically, reduction is a result of having the leadership in place, the adaptability, agility. You know, it's a result.
Yeah, I mean, reduction is
think
the
it's
main
a-
goal.
Which is a mission, right? What do we want to do?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty
Reduce.
measurable. Like you can have measurable reductions.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connected to other agencies,
I think again that's under leadership.
Yeah, it's another.
Your stakeholder management.
Collaborative.
cost
Collaborative.
effective,
Measurable
impact.
Measurable.
Yeah, I think cost effective, impact. What did you just say, Kath? I missed it. I'm sorry.
Going back to a collaborative
Collaborative.
around.
Collaborative, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, enhanced programs is the only one left there.
Enhanced programs.
Yeah. You see that, Ryan had suggested maybe leadership?
I mean, yeah, I think it would have to, well, I mean, I think in terms of implementation, it would fall under leadership. So we have
So our
leadership.
third keyword would be what, measurable impact, or just impact?
Well, I think measurable is the key word.
Yeah.
Right?
Measurable results.
Yeah. Measurable outcomes.
Cost effective scares me a little bit because I'm not sure a lot of this stuff is cost effective.
In
In terms,
the end, it would be, right?
do you know that though?
I think there's cost effective.
Evidence to suggest that it
Mm.
can be.
Yeah.
Yes, depending on what the effect is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think
We got 2 words, that's 3.
we got 3. Yeah, we've
Yes.
got leadership, adaptability, agility, and measurable impact. Do we feel like
The
we,
definitions of agility and adaptability, and then you can pick one, or do you want to keep?
Well,
them?
I think, you know, maybe, I don't,
Or do you
I
like-
mean, I think we just maybe can move on and then circle back to that, and because I feel like we've
our
kind of
next
talked-
stage would be to develop a vision
vision
statement
statement. Okay.
from
Okay.
here. But alternatively, what we could do is we could percolate on the 3 words. And maybe at the next meeting, we bring back what we think a vision statement would be.
No,
I
I
think that's
think if we have time, why don't we take a couple cracks at it? It might not be perfect, but it can give us a seed for something we can.
Okay, so it's
use.
25 to 3.
Just so everybody's, you have a hard stop at 3. I have a
Yeah.
meeting that's at 3, so I have to be back in my office.
Oh, okay.
so maybe we could just in the
check
interest,
what you said.
Yeah, right? I
just in
don't
the interest of
want to
time.
bring it
maybe-
up, but I will go there.
Sorry, Leslie, carry on. Sorry,
Yeah,
what did you
just I'm just saying maybe in the interest of time, we could move forward and set our meeting schedule, do the appointment of the chair, and then loop back. Maybe we could all just send you an email, Bridget, and say, this is what we're thinking. And then we can bring back
Yeah.
our vision statement for the
And we
next
can
meeting.
circulate the 3 words, and if people can kind of formulate, draft something.
Yeah.
Using the 3 words.
Yeah.
And we'll bring it back to the next meeting. Cindy, does that work for you?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Why don't we circulate those 3 words? We'll add it to the next agenda. And then we'll move on to the mission statement.
Done.
And I imagine if we don't get locked in on a statement, then we'll have a couple words, I think, and then we'll make a decision at about 10 to 3, where we think we're at, or about 5 to 3. And then we'll lock in our meeting dates. And if we can't get an election of the chair, if you're okay, Leslie, we can leave that and we can put that off to the next meeting. Can call the meeting to order as vice chair, and we can go from there. I think our main focus, everybody agrees, is to try to get our mission and vision locked in. And there's a lot of great conversation, so I don't want to lose that momentum if everybody agrees.
Sorry, what time did you?
How about we
I
do
need
the,
at least 5 to 7 minutes to get.
So I think Craig has a kind of a hard
Yeah.
stop, like in about 10 minutes.
so
Where he's
How about-
gonna have, do you want to do the stuff that you need motions for, like you need, I think you need quorum for everything, but
well, maybe can we move on to 7.2, set the meeting schedule so we can have a discussion about it, and then Craig can make it in time for his meeting, hopefully, and we can.
That
have a
would
crack
be
at
the
vision
conclusion
statement.
of the meeting, because we won't have quorum because we have to lose Deputy Mayor Huntley as well. So maybe
Okay.
this will be, we will receive where you're at now, Bridget, for information, and we will circulate to the committee the 3 words. And we'll take a motion on this, and we'll just stay at this section if the committee agrees. When we set our next meeting, we will pick up from page 11 and we will start on to the mission. Does that make sense?
Yep. I think
Yep.
that sounds perfect.
Do you want me to work on a quick motion here? Because I think it could just be something as simple as that Sustainability Advisory Committee supports the concept of, and we'll use the words leadership, agility / adaptability, measurable
For the vision
impact,
statement.
outcomes,
measurable
results,
impact. Yeah,
and to create vision statements to be discussed at the next meeting or something along those
yeah,
lines.
draft vision statement.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep,
That sounded awesome, Cindy.
good job.
Thankfully, it's on YouTube. I'll go
Good
back. All right, so we can just get a mover and a seconder for that.
I'll be the mover, and Lisa's a seconder.
I'm sorry, who was the seconder? I missed that.
Lisa Crawford.
Lisa, perfect. All right, so then we'll just call the vote. Crawford,
Yes.
on a fry check,
Yes.
D'Amico,
Yes.
Huntley,
Yes.
and Bilcock.
Yes.
Perfect. So then we will just hold here, and then we'll go on to 7.2 and then 7.3, and then hopefully, Craig, we can get that finalized so you can get moving on to your meeting.
Thank you.
Just give me 1 second here.
Great progress, though.
Yeah, it was really good, Bridget. Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks, everybody. Excellent. So committee meeting discussion, 7 point, I'm just going to jump ahead if that's okay, Cindy, in the.
Yeah,
interest of-
no problem. No problem. I'll just quickly bring it up here.
So I guess the next thing is, so Bridget suggested a schedule every 4 weeks on a Tuesday. Does anybody have any timing preferences or day preferences that you'd like for us to consider or, adapt or adjust our schedule for? Does this time work for everyone?
Cindy, did you want to go back to that part on the slide, the strategic planning framework? Because I think the next proposed date was.
The date was
August 22nd.
August 22nd and September 19th for the 2 dates.
Yeah.
So the 3rd Tuesday of the month, really.
Free.
There's
Call
one
on my
vote.
calendar of nothing and wide open.
Kat, what about you? I know you said you're going to be traveling.
So in August, I'm not. However, in August, let me just open a different document for 1 second. I have my entire global team here for 2 weeks for training, and they're in sessions, but I think August 22nd is a Tuesday. Yes, it is a Tuesday. And I know that we have an entire 11 till 3 is we're in admissions, and it's very specific training. So I wouldn't be able to be available on August 22nd.
Okay. Okay. How about, Craig, do you have any scheduling constraints or any preferences?
I mean, it's easier for me if it's outside of my regular business hours, but I appreciate that it's not for you folks. So the earlier I know, the easier it is for me to plan. Like even right now, I'm under some pressure to get out of here. But that was just because this was a meeting that was previously booked, so I had no control over it, right?
Yeah.
So the sooner I know the dates, the better for me. I would prefer something later in the day that typically after 4 p.m. But I will work with what the majority requires.
Okay. Cindy, why don't we and Bridget, why don't we draft a schedule and further to this, so build it out for every second Tuesday and have everybody check their schedules. And I know Kath's not available.
Third Tuesday.
The third Tuesday. Thanks, Ryan. Sorry. And then we can hopefully get something scheduled up until the end of the year, because I'm assuming that we will probably have to continue with a monthly meeting to meet our outputs that we need to provide. So perhaps we can draft a schedule, send it out to everybody, have people check their calendars, and then we can set something in stone so everybody knows what the meeting schedule is going to be for the rest of 2023. And we know Kath isn't available on the 22nd, so potentially we could look at an alternative date.
Now, if
or meet later in the day.
Time on the 22nd.
Okay.
If you're going to go with a later time on the 22nd, I can probably make that work.
Okay. Would that be acceptable if we did that? Do I need a? Cindy,
What time were you thinking? Like, were you thinking 3, 4? 4:30?
I would be fine with 4. Kath, would you be able to do a 4 p.m.?
Sure.
Cindy, is that okay for you guys to do a 4 p.m.?
We can make whatever works as the majority of the committee, as long as we believe that it will make majority, we can make it work. There's no problem with that. Ultimately, Bridget and Kyle, I mean, you guys are the staff on the project, so we can take it offline. But if we feel that that's the way it's going to be more beneficial and we can have a quorum, then I don't know.
Okay.
Doesn't make it really does not make any difference to me, truthfully, at all. Like,
No, I just wanted to I guess, understand if there was any impacts.
Yeah.
but I do think, to be fair, we're always going to have a situation, I've noticed in my 17 years of trying to coordinate schedules, where people aren't going to make it. So what we pray for is a majority. So I think, to be fair, in the most respect, Kath, if we can get a majority on the 22nd, let's lock that date. I think if we're just trying to figure out if it's 1 or 4, that's no problem. We can lock that. But I think if we can commit a date, at least then we can at least get our mission statement started, because obviously stage 3 and 4 are already going to be pushed out, right? Because we didn't get today finished, which is okay, that there's nothing wrong with that. But I just think from a perspective, we're going to shift our schedule. So I think let's try to lock in our our next meeting date today, if we can.
Yeah. So why don't we say August 22nd at 4 p.m. pending, Bridget and Kyle and Cindy, if that will work for you, you can let us know if that won't be suitable.
Yeah, if
Bridget or
that's-
Kyle, do you have any?
No, I'm good. Yep, I'm
Yeah.
good.
If that works better for the rest of the committee, then that should be good. If I know far enough in advance, I just always get my kids off the bus at 3:45. But if I know far enough, I can get a babysitter or something, or Or you do have a better staff member in Bridget, ultimately, I can't.
This is
remember.
just August 22nd, I think.
Yeah, let's
Not
just focus
4
on
o'clock,
August for
Yeah,
this.
Yeah.
just August
Yeah.
22nd.
Yeah, so let's go with 4. I'll try to just
Yeah,
make it work.
okay.
So
And
why
then
don't we
we'll-
just say that that's the motion, that the next meeting date will be August 22nd at 4 PM. Bridget will modify the presentation and we'll pick up after slide 11 and we'll just go from there. And then we can make, at our next meeting, maybe then we can make a determination on kind of, you know, from August till December, kind of what that looks like. Does that make sense as a consensus?
Sure.
That's his consensus.
It's just
Craig
consensus.
and Lisa, are you good with that? Just 4
Yeah, that's
PM on?
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
4 PM work, but yeah. Okay.
So the motion will be that the Sustainability Advisory's next meeting date will be held on September 22nd at 4 PM.
August.
And, sorry, I just wrote, I scratched
You were
out
looking at September, yeah.
I scratched it out to add the words. Perfect. And then we will just add, committee meeting schedule to the next agenda.
Perfect.
Okay,
But
so now,
But you're gonna map
Sorry.
out the rest of the, just to approve it, not sit here and discuss every date between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
she was
That's-
gonna- yeah.
All right, perfect.
we're going to bring a new amended schedule with
Yeah.
this. So then now would be our addition, which is 7.3, and that would be the appointment of our chair. So right now, unfortunately, Manny has had to resign his position as chair due to personal and professional reasons, but he wants to maintain being part of our committee. So is there anybody amongst us that would like to be a chair? Like to be the chair for our committee? Leslie is currently our vice chair, but you're more than welcome to put your name forward as well for chair. But if there's anybody that would like to consider that,
So we don't nominate someone for that?
yes, you would. But
Okay.
if there's anyone that wants to put their own name forward,
Yeah, I was
they
gonna
can.
say,
If you
has
wanna do it,
anyone,
You can, but some people, yeah, like I don't even know if anyone's had a chance to have those back,
Yeah.
conversations. I did include it in the email in case anyone. So if anyone already wants to nominate somebody and know they support that, or put your own name forward, whatever works best.
I
Cindy, not to
think
put on
Leslie did a
my,
fabulous job today.
Thanks, Kath.
Cindy, as a procedure, do we not have to accept the resignation before we can appoint a chair?
So he's not resigning from the committee. He's just resigning from as the chair.
No,
So
okay.
the motion will read that we accept the resignation from Manny Boris as the chair and appoint X, whoever X is going to be, as the
Okay.
chair for the 2026. But normally we would send a letter of thanks, et cetera, but we don't need to do that because Manny's still going to be here. And unfortunately, he can't be here today. They had a prior commitment, but we would thank him for him getting us started and all the great things he did as a brand new committee. So we'll have to make sure that we do that. But you're right. So the motion, absolutely, Miss Deputy Mayor Huntley, which is why I'm so excited when you get these procedure things. It is to accept the resignation and appoint the new chair. You're absolutely right.
I'm
Sorry.
here to excite you, Cindy, don't worry.
2 years, look at the
The
trigger,
raise
2
is
terms.
gonna
Look at
solve
the
that.
trigger, not round
Mary,
up.
Mary, this is what makes her happy.
It sure does.
Yeah.
The
Um,
weird quirkiness in me.
That's
Sorry.
okay. I'm happy to step up and try the chair role if everyone is okay with that. But then we also need to nominate a vice chair.
So this would be a two-step process because we have
Okay.
to resign you as chair, which is totally fine. We can do that. We can accept your resignation as a chair and appoint you as chair, and then we'd have to appoint somebody as
Okay.
vice chair.
Okay.
I would definitely second you as chair, Leslie.
Oh, thank you.
And so then it will also be the resignation of Leslie as vice chair. So we'll just break this out into two motions. So just give me one quick second here. I think that's the easiest way to do it. So we'll accept your resignation as vice chair, Leslie.
Okay.
And then,
What, can you just declare chair and vice chair vacant and then read?
all at once and just do it all in one motion. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
You're
and then
welcome,
we'll-
Cindy.
So do we have anybody that wants to be the vice chair?
I will.
Oh, Lisa. Perfect.
Wonderful.
Excellent. I will
So we
definitely
can do
second
this all in one motion. That's
Okay.
perfect. So no problem at all. That's
Make
great.
it so, Cindy.
Absolutely. This is great. So Deputy Mayor Huntley, you're still the mover?
that. Absolutely.
Perfect. And a seconder? Perfect. Kath, fantastic. No backing out. Congratulations on the new chair and the vice chair, and we'll just do a
Locked
quick
in.
recorded vote.
Locked in. No takesies backsies.
That's right, Bill Cock. We'll get this recorded vote in quick.
Yeah, because Craig has to go and so does Ryan. So
Perfect.
Okay.
Leslie, Bill Cock,
yes.
Crawford.
Yeah.
Anna Frychuk,
Yes.
Amico,
Yeah.
and Huntley.
Yes.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Our first
So-
cabinet shuffle.
Our
yeah.
first cabinet
I knew
shuffle,
that.
exactly. Thanks very much, Craig. We'll just do a quick adjournment and then that will be the end of the meeting.
Okay.
I
Thank
move
you,
to adjourn.
everyone, for coming. Thanks, Craig.
I just need a mover and a seconder, and then Craig will call you first on your way out the door.
Yeah. I'll
Kath,
move.
perfect.
I'll second.
Craig,
Yes.
perfect. Bill Cock,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Amico,
Yes.
and Huntley.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And that's an adjournment at 2:51 PM. We will
Great.
circulate the amendment when the agenda for our
Your itchy trigger finger.
22nd
Congrats to the new chair and vice chair.
If there's
Oh,
any questions
wow.
you want to run over anything procedurally, Lisa, please feel free to reach out, and congratulations to you
Well, we'll
both.
talk to do the agenda for the next meeting and
Yeah.
yeah. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great job, everyone, today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Great
Bridget.
job
You did
today,
an
everybody.
amazing
Yeah, you-
job leading us through part one of part one.
You did a great job, Bridget. Thank you for organizing everything.